Hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Claire Wasserman here, founder and author of Ladies Get Paid. We are an educational platform, global community, and a book all about helping women earn more and live better. It probably took about 6 years to figure out how to say that in a concise way. So if you are a job seeker, also try to figure out how to describe yourself, you wonderful, complex, dynamic human being in a one sentence. It takes time and full of iteration. And I hope that you are as proud of yourself as I am proud of you for showing up today, whether it's live or watching after the fact. These job seeker support groups are meant to be part educational, but mostly, I would say, motivational. Because I know this can be a rough time, whether you are currently looking for work and employed elsewhere. That's a huge energy drain. I know that. Also, if you are fun employed and looking for work, you may have more time on your hands, but oh gosh, more anxiety also. So also energy drain. So hopefully you come out of these just quote feeling a little better, and then with a next step. Since we do them on the first Monday of every month, hopefully you get some next steps for the rest of the month, or at least the rest of the day. Um, and if you're here on the chat live, take advantage of it, connect with each other. So what we are going to be doing for today is a bit of live coaching. This is kind of a fun experiment for me to see if I can think on my toes. You all are so wonderful and submit your questions beforehand. And then I pick a few folks who are the brave tributes, as you have called yourselves, to come up with me, either camera on or off, and we can do a little dialogue back and forth. I like to pick people who have asked questions that I have seen time and time again, because I know that this will be universal. And yes, of course, it's spending time with one person and their story, but I think when we get into the weeds, it can be actually quite helpful for everybody else to find takeaways. And then there's a few people who asked questions that who didn't want to be on camera. No worries. I think I'm just going to address them because they were really good questions. And then we're going to do a breakout where we connect with each other. That will not be recorded. So this is incentivizing you all who are not here live to hopefully show up next time, which will be November 6th, because that is the first Monday of next month. All right. And by the way, I want to just say I'm somebody so I'm a career coach and, of course, like I said, founder and author of Ladies Get Paid, but I have also been let go because of downsizing. I've also been let go because of, well, I'll go into detail in another time about why that was, but I've been brutally fired before. Okay. And I've been on unemployment. And I've gone through it all. And what I have really found is that it can, while be a very difficult time, it can also be a glorious time of self-exploration and opportunity where you really get to restart and reset. You do not have to go with the status quo and with the flow anymore. You really can put a stake in the ground and say, hey, I'm going to do things differently. That requires an immense amount of fortitude and self-organization, right? So not to say that that it's easy, but I think that there's so much amazingness that can come out of it, because I've created companies out of unemployment. I've done deep therapy work out of unemployment. Okay. So I like to set the tone in a positive way as best as I can. Asia goes, heavy on the self-organization, huh? I mean, I think the fundamental life skills that we all gain during a time of instability, it's wild. There's also research that shows that in a recession is when the most companies are made. So I think there can be a direct correlation between a setback and momentum forward. But how do you do that? And that's why we're here today. I would love to call Lena up. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, so feel free to tell me I am wrong. Lena, I'm going to ask you to unmute, but if you don't want to go on camera, no worries. Totally up to you. I believe you have an interview tomorrow. If anybody has stuff happening like immediately, we want to take care of this. So Lena, tell me about what's going on for tomorrow and how I can help. And when I say I also mean all of us here. So if you're hearing something where you've got experience or story to share, I want you to jump into the chat as well.
Yes. Hi. Thank you. I do have an interview tomorrow morning. It's about a 15-minute phone conversation, which likely we're looking at 10 minutes after introductions. So it's going to be more of like a pitch than anything. and it is a position focused on nonprofit management, specifically development and donor engagement.
Mhm.
It is a remote position, and yeah, I have applied for this place probably like 3 times. I changed my resume, and finally I got something back. So I am excited that at least I've gotten this far. And my hope is, I started preparing yesterday. My hope is to just have them get to know me during that time. But I'm also a little stuck on what questions to ask. I did come up with one in regards of the team culture and the remote work. I just wanted to know more about that and how they cultivate their team culture. But I am flat out of ideas, and just wanting to get more feedback.
Awesome. I love that you tried and tried again and tried again and you tweaked. I let that be a fantastic lesson to everybody watching here, that it's the follow up, the follow through, but also that you weren't just submitting like the same thing, that presumably you got feedback on, you tweaked it. So I think that in and of itself is part of your story. It was so helpful. I'm so glad I called you up. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Okay, so in terms of 15-minute interviews, I mean, this sort of speaks to how I started today's session in joking about like how do heck do we consolidate who we are and our story in like one sentence. I don't know how it is you're going to be able, in such a short time to leave a fantastic impression, except I've got some tips for you here. First and foremost, when you wrote me in, you said, I'm not sure what to highlight. I can tell you right now where to figure that out. Job description. I want you to decipher the crap out of the job description that you applied to and any and all materials you've been able to find based on the company research you've done. CEO's been on a podcast, you listen to that, like being able to pick up on kind of the nuances and demonstrating that you did research is awesome. Look, I would love for you to, especially if there's things that you've seen them repeat themselves. A lot of job descriptions will say the same things in different words. So if you find that there is a certain skill set or kind of type of experience or cultural thing that it's clear that they value, pick up on that. And I would love for you to have in your back pocket a fantastic example of how you have done that. And not just I did the thing, but like, here's how I did it. Having a detail is always good, a story to tell. You're going to just feel so much more prepared, right? Not like, what are they going to ask me? But let's not wait until they ask you the question. You can always say, by the way, at the end, there's something, when I was going over the job description and I was reflecting on, where I feel like my strengths are best aligned with what you're looking for. I just wanted to share with you, so it's like, yeah, go off of what they're saying, but also have a fantastic story that you absolutely will tell, regardless of whether they prompt you for it. So I would start there by really deciphering the job description. And then in terms of the questions that you ask, I mean, I think they kind of fall into two categories. One category is a question you really do want to know the answer to, because this is going to help you make the decision of is this a place that you indeed want to work at, right? Which it sounds like you did prepare that question.
Mhm.
But the other category of question is a question that you're really just asking because it makes you look good to ask it. And in my mind, especially in your position, because I started my career in development and fundraising at nonprofits, you're thinking about the business bottom line. You're thinking about how do we most efficiently and effectively and scrappily, bring resources into this company. Can you ask a question that demonstrates to them that you are thinking in this way, something that showcases your thought process? I don't know if offhand, if there's anything that comes to mind for you right now. And this is a good prompt, I think, for everybody here when you're thinking about applying for jobs and having the interview. What's a question you can ask that's going to make you look really good? And if your first instinct is, oh, that's going to be obvious that I'm asking this in a braggy way or something, well, actually, no, let me not fill in the blanks and assume that that's what anybody's thinking. So you tell me what your first what's your initial thought when it comes to asking a question that's less about getting the answer, but more about demonstrating to them that you're a special candidate?
Well, one question was like, what is, considering this is like a smaller team that handles directly with donor engagements,
Mhm.
what is their vision? What are their priorities for the next year to be able to reach their goals, or reach their priorities as apart from the organization's mission or vision?
Fantastic. I'm going to now take that a next step further. Can you also piggyback that idea off of, or that question off of an example of how you in the past have worked with a small team, and why vision? Because there's a reason you're asking this question, because you know it is so important to have this vision. So what's going to get them to remember you and have you stand out in this is less about the question, because sort of anybody could ask that question, even though it's a good question, but more about, and here's why I'm asking it, because I've had experience here where I learned in this, and have it be a sort of positive story. There could have been challenges, of course, because maybe you discovered, gosh, if you don't have a vision, set a vision, or, here's what can go wrong. So it's okay if the story includes some obstacles in it, but showing them your thought process and experience in the why you're asking this question is going to make you stand out.
Okay.
And I'm seeing some people in the chat. This is great. Carolina has some really good questions that she asks employers. But I love when you ask a question, say, and here's why I'm asking it. Because in my experience, right? Because like at every opportunity, you are giving them more evidence of why you should be hired.
Perfect. And do you think there's value in asking, um, like if I've done a little research on one of the people that are interviewing me, and I know that she has been in that position for just like 8 or 9 months, do you think there's value in asking her, like, what are the best parts of your job, since you've been there for not too long, or like what was something that surprised you? That was another one that I was considering.
Um, Before I answer your question, because I'm going to answer it in a way that I think will speak to Camille just asked in the chat, what if I have way more than one question I want answered? I would say pick the question that makes you look best. So if you ask this question, which is a fantastic question, I would assume the takeaway that you're trying to get them to take from you is you want to set yourself up for success in the first 90 days. You want to have your leave them with a story of how you're able to shorten your learning curve, right? Like what have you found to be successful in the first night, like implementing in the first 90 days? Do you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, it's not that you don't ask the question. It's just make sure that the question you're asking can also leave them looking at you in a really good light. And so you can also always follow up with more questions by email. And also, this is the first of, well, hold on. Is this the first interview? Sorry if you told me.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So for everybody, when we're connecting with people, whether it's an interview or networking, it's the beginning of a relationship, right? So, let this be you're getting past the first hurdle, meaning we need to leave an excellent impression, get them super excited to get you into the next interview or the next meeting or whatever it is. So, for Camille's question of like, I have so many questions, it's like, let's just ask the ones that make us look the best. And also if there's a serious answer we need to learn from them, of course you ask that. And then let's see what happens next. And then we can continue from there.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Good luck. Will you keep us posted?
Yes, I will do. Thank
Okay.
you.
Fabulous. All right. So I see Shannon here. Yay. I see Abby applauding. Fantastic. So Shannon, I'm going to have you come up, my friend. You do not need to put on your video if you do not want. It is totally up to you. And we're going to do probably about 10 minutes of chat here, or maybe 15. And then we will go, I think, into networking. And at the end, we'll all come back together and I may answer a couple more questions as well. But Shannon, how are you feeling in terms of us doing our live coaching? You ready for it? My brave tribute?
Let's do it.
Okay, awesome. All right, so I'm going to read aloud what you wrote in. There was a lot of stuff, and that's why I chose you, because
Okay.
also there was a lot of.
I guess I didn't remember.
Okay, well, I'll
It's been a little
remind
bit.
you, and then you give me an update on how you're feeling with what you wrote in, and then
Sure.
I prepared a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, so you wrote in. Well, my prompt was obstacles that you're facing, and you said bandwidth to keep up with job search goals, like updating resume, networking on LinkedIn, job workplace fit, matching my values and skill set, financial stress with low income part time roles, and then making my self care and mental health a priority. The questions that you asked were, what strategies can I use to tap into the hidden job market and land a good job fit through my network? And how can I accelerate my job search if I'm facing a financial burden and need income? So, um, like I said at the very beginning of all of this is definitely a challenge for me because can I answer those questions in 10 to 15 minutes? We will do our best. But tell me, based on everything that I said, where you're at in your fun employment journey and how you're feeling and how I could help.
Yeah. So I mean, pretty much those questions are still looming, and I'm still kind of navigating them. So I am coming off of I'm in I should start with I'm in a career pivot. So that kind of helps a little bit with orientating. That I've been in higher education for I think 15 plus years as an advisor and a college instructor, and I'm interested in going into potentially an educational management or nonprofit or some type of workforce development company. I have been remote in my jobs since COVID, and either remote or hybrid. And then coming off of higher education, in just the beginning of this year, I landed a job for a small, I would say young, meaning like 4 years in, startup company in workforce development. And this was a female-owned, minority-owned business. And this person hired me on a part-time basis to be a career development coach and program specialist. And I really was interested in this role to kind of career pivot, to expand my skill set. She also allowed me to be in to basically enroll in a career facilitating workshop, or I'd say training course. It was definitely a course. It was a 10-week course. And I just received my certification. So I feel like I'm gaining some tools, and I did have a good experience in that role. However, I brought up the question about job search fit because, similarly to what you've just been doing with the last person on this call, I asked a lot of those questions. I felt as though I was asking more about the 30, 60, 90 day. I was interested in making sure that she had a vision. I figured she was a business owner and entrepreneur, and that was part of her brand. And she would be really interested in investing in her staff. It just showed through the first month, and then later into the second month, that there wasn't really a plan, and there was a lot of things going on with personality. And we're both in career development, so we know about these things. And there was assessments that I had done for us to get closer and have a better connection. Ultimately, she basically decided to explain that there was a business downturn, and that I think she was going to make some different decisions, and they wouldn't include my role. So my position was eliminated. So it's pretty difficult because you are just starting a role and you're hoping for the best, and you're making a pivot and it's brand new. You don't have a lot to lean on. So I tried really hard to be in touch with contacts, people I knew, to kind of guide me. But it still was a shock as much as I saw some red flags. So that was the part, just sharing that part, just so you understand the question about fit.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so sorry that you had that experience, that sort of whiplash. I wish I could say you're the only
Thank you.
one I've heard that story from. But I think there's probably a number of people here. I don't know if anyone wants to jump in the chat where the job that they joined ended up not being what they thought it was going to be, and or their position was eliminated pretty quickly. And yeah, I'm definitely seeing some people here, and it is so, so, so hard to not take it personally or to fault yourself. I should have known. Or like if I had just done better in the first 90 days, or I mean, that's a whole other conversation of how do we protect our sense of self in all of this. I would just say for you, this absolutely sounds like it really had nothing to do. Listen, this is a relationship that has to go both ways, right? So I sometimes see, when there's a disruption in the very beginning, thank God, right? Like, let's all be grateful that things like I'm grateful. Sorry to my ex-husband, but like super glad we got a divorce before we had kids. Like it was embarrassing to get a divorce and after 2 years, but there's also something to be said about not letting it go on too long. So I'm seeing some nods here. So
right, you don't have to have the further damage, right? I mean,
right.
that's because I did bring up, the mental health and things like that. So it does take a damper.
Yeah.
And it's just that I was trying to make momentum. I think one of the things that's a little tricky about my situation is I have been kind of starting and stopping, and I'm just really interested in momentum. And I'm also a process girl, so I really like strategy. I like the long game. So it's been a little frustrating.
Yeah. I totally hear you. And here's, and I don't mean to sound like a cliche here, but I have seen in my own life all the terrible things that have happened or whatever I have used to create greatness. So there is so much information here that you have learned, or can learn about the red flags to see moving forward. Maybe even your purpose is in this and maybe helping other people ask better questions. Like if you can spend a lot of time journaling of like, what's all the opportunity that I can find within this to learn about myself. And so anytime that you're doing that and you start to feel judgment on top of it, just note the judgment. It's there to help you because it thinks it's protecting you from making mistakes in the future, but it's right now actually just distracting you. Note it, put it to the side, and just say, where are the learning opportunities? I'm so glad that you said that you love process, because that's what we're going to talk, and momentum, because that's what we're going to talk about here. So I'm just going to jump right in with a bunch of stuff that I prepared based off of what you had written into me. And then we can, hear your thoughts, but also I see some great things in the chat. So I hope you're paying attention. There are some really helpful folks. All right. So anytime somebody writes into me with a question, with lots of questions, but at least one question about sort of anxiety and mental health, that to me is the foundation of everything. That is like, if we're building a house, which is our lives, we got to get a rock solid concrete foundation here. So I'm going to give you just a couple of tips on how to prioritize that. First, pick activities now that bring rest or rejuvenation to you, because they're different, right? The rest, that's obvious. Rejuvenation, though, that can sometimes be harder to figure out. What gets you inspired again? You talked about wanting to build momentum. There's building blocks of momentum. You're probably thinking external momentum, right? But how do we start it from within? Just even walking outside, right? Or I'm realizing, after so many, 2.5 years in the pandemic of like not seeing people in person, turns out that not getting energy from actual people really, really hurt my mental health. And I, who's such a people person, but I didn't even fully realize that. So really try to like give yourself an exercise of what are things that give me rest and rejuvenation, and how can I prioritize them as part of my schedule, starting small. Okay, so connecting with people, moving your body, being in nature, getting inspired. That includes some kind of project for yourself. And those of you who've come to my job seeker support groups, I'm obsessed with this. Like, let's not wait for people to give us opportunities. We have to create them for ourselves. If there's something that you can work on that is actually not job search related, but rather skill related, because you're going to use this.
I'm actually thinking of one right away. So I was, I often do this. I'll have things, listed and then like they're on the back burner. And I just, to your point, need to make them more of a priority. I'm thinking about tapping into LinkedIn Learning, because I do have a connection. I do have an email that's allowing me to get connected with that. So I do a volunteer role as a career coach. And because of this, EDU email, I'm able to kind of tap into LinkedIn Learning. So I've kind of bookmarked a few key ones. So kind of going back to your idea of thinking about your purpose, I know it is a little bit job related, but I'm kind of interested in doing things that would tap into new skills, like almost kind of like rediscovering new skills and new interests. So some of these videos, you know, are trainings, and, you know, you can put them on your LinkedIn, but it just depends on what they are. Like sometimes they're not too super long, sometimes they are.
So what's cool about this, and this goes with for everybody here, you know, I'm seeing like Asia said, I have walking and games on my list. Use this as content on your LinkedIn, by the way, because people who are on LinkedIn are looking for work and or looking for work development. Talk about what is keeping you going. Here are my favorite skill videos that I watched, or here's how I'm, you know, fitting it into my schedule, or here's how I'm learning to prioritize things that don't quote seem like a priority directly, but indirectly are, right? Like, here's what I'm doing for my mental health in my job search time. Like, if there's anything that you are experiencing in this journey of job search, share it with others. A, it's going to help them, but B, it's going to get you into people's feeds. So that's where I, you know, and I'm going to keep going on my list here, but I want to always say, like, yes, prioritize mental health. But look, there's so many more benefits than just your mental health. You can use it as content. Everything's an opportunity. So by the way, before you like jump into all of this, just like know that this is a bucket that you're going to be working on. So in a given week, saying, okay, on Mondays for 60 minutes, I'm going to be mapping out for the rest of the week what are like my rest and rejuvenation activities here. Okay. Then the other thing that's causing a lot of anxiety for you, I know, is financial stress, right? So this isn't all just like, go walk in the woods. Like, we got to make a paycheck here. Okay. So I'm going to say some things you've probably done, but I think they're worth mentioning again, especially for those listening who maybe haven't yet done it. Just please go through your bank statement. If there's anything that you're spending money on that you didn't realize or is not necessary anymore, there is so much crap in there for like subscriptions. Like,
Yes,
there's,
I actually did do that already.
yes.
I literally
Okay.
purged all of,
So like,
most of it.
we got to stop the bleeding. You know, if there's any, like, so just making sure you're stopping the financial bleeding of like money out. Now we got to talk about getting money in, right? Because that balance, and I mentioned this earlier of at the way beginning when I started this, was when you're working for someone else and looking for a job, while you may not have financial anxiety, it's going to be a massive energy and time drain. So I think for you, when you're thinking about how do you stop the financial bleed, like how do we get money in quickly, what's just going to be the trade-off for you in regards to your time and energy? So the challenge is, can you find work that will be the least taxing for you? I'm going to just throw a bunch of ideas into the chat. I think this came from Financial Diet. They're a really good resource. Highly recommend everyone check them out. These are kind of, quote, easy ways to make additional income. So things, especially if you're, you know, you're a career coach, or, you know, it's like you can tutor, right? So is there something that, you know, this is, I've been a hostess at a restaurant, which I've been a barista at Starbucks, which on one hand is not taxing mentally, right? So that's good.
It's
but on the other,
physical.
it's physical, right? So sometimes
I've been in catering mostly all my life, so I know that I can always fall back, but I'm getting older now, and it's like, you know, I'm just not, I'm not a 20 something, you know, so it's like, you know, it's at the end of the day, it is kind of both. Like you would end your day and you'd be like, well, I'm really physically tired. And now I really don't want to sit in front of my computer, you know?
Yeah. So there's, and I'm going to get to that in just a second in terms of calendar design. In 2 seconds actually for that, because we're going to talk about creating the system of all the things you need to do to look for work and then inputting it into your calendar. There's going to be a sacrifice in all of your choices here. And that's just life, right? Like, I started my own business. I got the freedom to work for myself, but a shit ton of financial anxiety that came with it. For anybody who like follows their passion, but like the passion doesn't make much money. Well, now, like, what's that trade-off? Or there's the people, you know, friends of mine who are lawyers who make so much money, hate their jobs, trade-off. Like, I'm not saying this to be Debbie Downer to folks, but apologize.
No, they're kind of realities. I mean, it's, you know.
So I think really at the end of
every
the day,
industry is like that, you know.
And so I think at the end of the day, the question is, what are my values and priorities during this season of my life? And what are the trade-offs that I am willing to make? And sometimes that means, yeah, I'm going to make less money but have more time and energy. And I'm okay with that because I have a plan for how I'm really going to maximize that time and energy. It's also not going to be endless. I'm giving myself 3 months, right? And then I'm going to reevaluate. And then when you have anxiety, you financial anxiety, you go, but I made this choice. As long as everything that you do is intentional and coming from a
Yes.
place of, again, values and priorities, which change, right? Like I'm about to have 2 kids. My priorities have absolutely changed since, finding out that we were having 2 instead of 1, right? So that's why this kind
Right.
of stuff, like, even though we're all now in this, like, let's find a job and it's freaking us out, it's actually forcing us to do a self-evaluation that we should all be doing quarterly, probably in our lives anyway.
Yeah, you
And
bring up a really good point.
yeah. Okay, good. Thank you. It's all because I don't see
Yeah,
you.
definitely. Because one of the things that I've already did, just to jump in, is that I did think about those short and long-term goals. Like I said, I'm a process person. So when I started this job, I had actually, that was my plan because it was part-time. And so I was like, okay, it's remote hybrid. The financial there is kind of low, but there's some perks. I'm remote and hybrid, and I don't have to be on the, I don't have to commute. I don't have to be on the road a lot. I can, maximize that time, things like that. And then just what you do with those other days off, being very intentional about your job search. So I'm hoping to do something similar if I can get a remote part-time job, just so that I can, like you said, make my bills, and then just work off of that and really be intentional about the time off.
Right. And there could also be, I'm hearing more and more folks go, you know what? My job doesn't have to fulfill me as long as it's not leaching so much energy from me that I can then take those other hours and put it towards this other, a business that I'm creating. Right. So it's as long as you're asking yourself all these the right questions, and then considering just what is the trade-off in this, and not fighting the trade-off. I think we're all looking for, like, how do I not have a trade-off in this? And it's just simply not possible. So it's kind of like, what trade-off is best aligned with, like, where I'm at in my life? I want to talk about the system of looking for work. And then after that, putting it into a calendar. And so some kind of like energy time management, and then we'll do our breakouts. So the system of looking for work, I would map out all the categories of things that you have to do, and then the micro actions that ladder up to them, and then putting it in one place. I've talked before in previous sessions how much I love Todoist as a platform. You've mentioned a bunch already. I'll put it in.
Because I was just wondering, are you just meaning steps when you say the micro?
Yeah. So let me give you a quick example here. And you already had some that you wrote in, because you said when you were like job search goals, right? You were updating resume, networking on LinkedIn, right? Okay. So I would think about, what are the larger categories? Materials. Okay. What are all the materials you're going to need to apply with? Networking. Okay. What about the job search and application process? How about internal dialogue, right? The like evaluating the values and the skills. Okay. Yes. You'll go through and you'll make all the categories. Within those categories, what are the then like deliverables on them? So materials, that would be your resume, cover letter, and you could even break it down even further. Like, you need a template, or like, probably a foundational resume, but then you're going to tweak it based on where you're applying.
Like the master one.
Yeah. And then, but none of that is helpful unless there's an action that is associated with it. What is required for you to actually do this thing? And then, and this is the calendar design, when are you going to do it? And I don't mean when will it be due, D-U-E, because we procrastinate, especially if we have endless time. So when are you going to start it? And then it's deciding within a given week, okay, how do you want to batch your time? And this is the wonderful thing. If you end up, if you do have a lot of time on your hands, maybe we only work 4 days a week here, like Monday through Thursday, because Fridays are inspiration day, or trying new skills day, or, doing something wacky that we write about on LinkedIn. So, and then deciding within a given day, just kind of your natural focus. So for me, I don't think I can really sit more than 3 hours, and even that's a lot. So batch tasking. So saying a certain category of work that requires a certain kind of thinking or doing, I'm going to do that work at this hour. It's going to be my morning chunk, and I'm going to do it on Monday. And maybe 3 hours is too much. So within the 3 hours, I'm going to break it down into 1 hour chunks. And then how am I going to hold myself accountable to doing it? I think in everything I'm saying here, the point is you can break this stuff down into such micro pieces that you then experiment with. Maybe that's too much time for you. Maybe, you want to only work half days every day, but you're doing extreme focused work, right, during that time. So it's after you lay out, I kind of look at it like a puzzle, right? So you have all these pieces now you've laid out, and then you decide where they go. And that includes the work that you're doing on the side to make money, where that goes. Like, okay, here's the part of my day that cannot be moved, whether it is because I am working the side job or I'm taking care of children or whatever it is. Like, sorry, these 5 hours are blocked off. All right, let's work around those 5 hours. Of the rest of the time, what's also reasonable for you? Looking at this like a marathon and not a sprint. I know we all want it to be a sprint because we all want that job yesterday, but we got to assume this is going to take way longer than we'd like. And if that discourages you, just remember within that, you are learning massively helpful life skills that you can also write about on LinkedIn for content. And so saying, all right, am I working in such a way that is sustainable for my energy here? And having some kind of like feedback loop for yourself, where at the end of the week, at the end of the day, you're reflecting and saying, okay, what of this worked and didn't work for me? And sometimes I get a little nervous when I look back and I had this like amazing week, all this great shit happened. I had so much adrenaline and momentum.
That actually happened last week for me.
Which is wonderful. Like we want to have,
it's a good feeling.
It's a great feeling, but then also, what goes up must come down. So there's that, but also, is that sustainable? And having
I did reflect on it, and it was that, as much as you were saying, be, social setting, kind of see people, I was just doing too much networking. So I was kind of going overboard, and there was travel, involved, to some, in-person events, and they were great learning events and really good for projects. I'm actually considering writing a memoir, hopefully, in this lifetime, maybe more particularly in the next 5 years, but, that is a huge goal, right? So it's like, you got to start somewhere. So there's the momentum, and you get a little, I tend to be someone that I can only do like kind of a lot of those social networking things in bursts. So when I by Friday I reflected and I said, okay, it was a little much. I got a lot out of it though, and I can connect, but I kind of put those burdens on myself too, right? I have this kind of, unfortunately, I am neurodivergent. I should kind of have no problem disclosing, and just sharing that that was something that I had a intuition about, but just found out and got that kind of like confirmed for me recently. And so because of that, I'm realizing about energy, it's so important about what you're saying when you think about your job search. And I know I have to do really intense mental work in the mornings when I'm very fresh. And I can't think that after a networking event, I can come home back to my computer and do all these LinkedIn requests to everyone. Right. Because that's what I tried to do.
Right. And also I know, and I tend to only do the things I want to do. So that's part of my problem. Something that could be helpful in all of this is, different color cards, as a reminder. So you could have your online, the materials that you need to be working on, and updating, clearly to Lena's mentioned earlier, like it was applying 3 times and it was after tweaking her resume. Okay. So online materials, networking, mental health, and then here's another color, job search, the actual application, and then maybe, skill building, right? Or whatever, all the categories. And maybe, cause I think you should all put this down, by the way, on computer, not just on paper, because otherwise it's going to be circling in your brain subconsciously or consciously, and it's taking energy from you. But have it in front of you. And then why don't you just, in a given day, at the beginning of the day, circle the top priority. What would you, if you did it, have the biggest impact on everything else on your list? Challenge yourself. Go get one of these 30-minute, 60-minute, 10-minute timer, whatever. Join a group like focusmate.com, body doubling. connect with us and here, Ladies Get Paid, whatever, and just be like, all right, of these activities, I'm going to do, okay, this one thing here for an hour, right? And then I'm going to reevaluate because I should also take a 10-minute break in between, right? Okay. And then
Right.
the reason I like having everything here is if you do a deep dive on something, right, you get sucked into the rabbit hole of a thing.
Right.
When you are done with it, it's not that you're like, oh, damn, that was a problem. You may be like, no, that was great. Like, it's wonderful to go down a rabbit hole, but I just now can have a perspective. I can have a more holistic look at, all right, where do I need to shift next?
Right.
And that's it. So you don't need to ever beat yourself up over your choices because you're constantly going deep and then stepping back, deep and stepping back. Okay. I'm realizing.
And you say like, just take maybe 10 minutes to kind of reflect on that during the day and do it in real time, right? Like, don't wait until the end of the week or do it like immediately after.
I would figure out what works best for you. I mean, I always like to do beginning and end of the day and then end of week as my thing. And then sometimes, for example, right now I'm redoing our salary negotiation video course. Sometimes you're working on a thing that like, that's your main priority for the whole week. And truly like nothing else matters. And you just have to get it done. And it is what it is. And like, you don't need to be checking in with yourself. So like, you'll figure it out. But especially in the beginning, when you're setting up systems for yourself, I find this to be a really great way to do it. By the way, I'm realizing we've got about 13 minutes left. So I'm actually going to just say thank you so much to you because I want to do just breakouts with everybby for about like 8 minutes.
Thank you so much.
Oh, good.
Great,
okay.
Claire. Thank you so
Fantastic.
much.
Come back on November 6th and tell us how the process is going. Because that's the other thing that Shannon had asked that I want us to now use as the prompt for the networking group is or maybe Shannon hadn't asked it, but multiple people did. How do you chart and celebrate progress in this journey when a lot of us are both conditioned, but also makes sense that like we're outcome oriented, right? So when we get the job, we're happy. When we get the raise, we're happy. When the boss tells us we did a good job, we're happy. Well, that ain't happening right now. Like we got to figure out something else. So we can't wait on externalities here. Otherwise, we're going to be really fucking depressed. So I would love for us to all share tips in our networking breakout. Well, first of all, you can talk about whatever you want because you're all adults. But if you'd like a prompt, I would say, how are you charting and celebrating progress, success in this time where everything is, fraught? You can also talk about whatever you want. So I'm going to say, let's do 8 minutes, maybe like 2 people, and then oh, good. Megan likes that prompt. And then we will come back together and we can, if there's somebody you met that you think is awesome, which I know that person will be because it's Ladies Get Paid, you can introduce them. I'm going to pause the recording here, though I will re-up at the very end when we come back together. Recording. Okay. So when I send you all this recording, I'm going to do it in a strategic way, which is I'm going to write a post on LinkedIn, recapping some great takeaways from today with the recording. I would love for you to comment on the LinkedIn with your information. And also, if there's something that you learned, do that because I got almost 9,000 followers. Get in front of them, get in front of each other. Like this is a thread of today. Remember of like anything you're doing could be content on LinkedIn. And if it's helping another person, we don't need to feel weird about it. So look at that. Lauren's doing a free yoga class. Like, yeah, anything and everything. The good people come to Ladies Get Paid. Speaking of which, I would love to meet some of you. So tell me if there's somebody here. I'm going to just allow you to unmute yourself. Don't all speak at once. But if somebody wants to jump in real quick and just tell me about the person that they met, especially if there was a thing that was said that was helpful to them, this is the time to do it. And if there's no one, that's okay too.
I'll pop in quick.
Yes. Thank you, Danielle.
Hi, everyone. I'm Danielle. You can call me Danny. And I just had the coolest experience in my breakout group. So you might see in the chat, I said that I'm moving to San Diego. And there was a woman, Carolina, who popped in and said like she's looking to move there as well. And in our breakout group, it was just the 2 of us and we're paired together. I was like, what serendipity. Yeah, but Carolina is fantastic and I hope you don't mind, but I'm gonna put you on Happy Blast and just say she's looking for stuff. She's looking for roles in recruiting or L&D. There's something else I think, but what is interesting, and maybe people can like weigh in on this too, is like Carolina, for example, has like a bunch of experience in her background, so she can do a wide variety of roles. Customer success was another option as well, but then it's like, how do you put all that together and put it in a resume to just get the foot in the door to have the conversation and then to be able to tell the story of yourself? And I'm kind of finding something similar where I have a neat hodgepodge of things, but like packaging that together and getting the foot in the door can be hard. So put that
Yeah.
out there.
I'll give you a quick response on that. And
Yeah.
it's similar to what I said before. I think to Lena, who wasn't sure in such a short period of time of an interview, what do you highlight? You really have to tailor it to what the job description is. They're telling you what's important to them. So you may have a ton of things to talk about. And by the way, you could probably integrate some fun stories into your cover letter, but what needs to be clearest are the things that they have clearly said that they value. So if there's X, Y, and Z skills or experiences, even though you know you've got 5 more things you could talk about, like why would you just speak to exactly what it is that they've already indicated is important to them? Is that helpful?
Yeah, that's really helpful.
Yeah. Now, of course, again, if there's something, I mean, the other skills, like that could be an add-on, right? So, but look at it as like the decoration on the cake, as opposed to like the cake that you're presenting. So that was great. And I cannot believe that you were posted or you were put together. That geography is destiny. This is fabulous. And then what are you looking for, Danielle?
Oh, for myself, I'm looking to transition back into HR. So any director of people, talent, or culture roles in San Diego or remote anywhere would be helpful for me.
God
And
bless
same
you.
if folks want to connect, I have background in that too.
I feel like a lot of people are transitioning out of that field so because of COVID. Awesome. And put your LinkedIn into the chat. If you haven't already, I did as well. Although y'all get my email, so please open it. Anyone else? That was great. Who would like to give a little shine to the person that I love that happy blast. Yeah, I'm gonna take that now. I'm gonna say that. I think somebody raised their hand, but I'm not calling it anyone. You can just jump right in and start speaking.
Claire, it's Rita. I can jump in real quick here.
Fabulous.
To give a shout out to Lauren Mallett, who shared how she's continuing to stay on track with personal goals that she already had prior to this career change. And so some examples of that were making healthy food choices and continuing to read books that she was working on.
Yes. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. As an update for everybody, so the last time that I had spoken with Claire, about a month ago, I was pitching a director role to the company that I was working at, including the related compensation for that and all of those fun, like kind of awkward, but you want to be super prepared for conversations. It ended up not being the right fit for me at this time. And so I took a leap and chose to say thanks, but no thanks. And so now I'm looking for my next opportunity that I'm excited about.
The bravery, but like, again, the life skills. You got so much you could write about on LinkedIn, content you can use to help other people in your, in your search. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. Yeah. And this community has helped a lot. So shout out to everybody. As a FYI, I first joined Ladies Get Paid probably 4 years ago when I first moved to Los Angeles from Michigan. And at that time, it was more of like a coordinator type role. And so the confidence and this community has been really powerful. So thank you to everybody. It works.
And what I did not pay Rita to say this. What are you looking for? How can people help you? And then we'll close there.
Absolutely. So I'm looking for and of course, as soon as you ask, then my mind goes blank. I'm a transformation manager. So my background is in user experience, product and project management. But really, the core of it is how do you make sure that everybody's communicating and working together to make sure that we're making the right tool for the right team so that everybody can do our jobs better and help our customers better.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rita. Thank you. Thank you. I am going to just do a final, I'll remove you from this screen. I'm going to thank you all for being here. Just give me 1 second. Remove from first. Okay. I'm going to just jump in the chat real quickly. So for less than $15 a month, you can get matched with other members and do group coaching with me, which I know this was it, but it'll be like 10 people or 15 people. So it's more intense. Plus we've got hundreds of hours of content in our video library. Each video, a lot of them I think are $15 each, but you get all of them for free. And you can cancel anytime. So probably shouldn't say that, but yes, you can. So I just dropped that. It's ladiesgetpaid.com/join, but I also just put the monthly pass in there. If you're not in our newsletter, you probably are because that's how you got this invite, but ladiesgetpaid.com/subscribe. Really good tips in there. And then the last thing, because I am a small business owner and I have no shame, I'm going to just drop my own baby registry in the chat because we do so much for free. And if there's even just a $5 book for our baby that you would like to purchase from there, or $5 towards our diaper fund, with twins coming, we can expect to have about 6,000 diapers a year. So anything is helpful and appreciated. And I also want to normalize asking for help and having no shame in it, because it's liberating somebody else to do the same. And also getting things is nice. There you go. Open up your email when you get it with the recording and comment on my LinkedIn. It helps me, it helps you, it helps other people. Normalizing asking for help. Yes. And I don't Eventbrite. Well, let me actually stop this recording real quick.